Composting today has been turned into a science project. People argue over browns versus greens, debate exact ratios, and worry endlessly about turning piles or buying fancy bins. But if you ask Amish farmers, who have been building some of the richest soil in the country for generations, they'll tell you it doesn't have to be complicated. Their composting method is direct, consistent, and proven over centuries of farming, and that's what this guide is all about. Breaking composting back down to its simplest, most effective form so you can actually use it, not just talk about it. The problem with modern overthinking. If you scroll through gardening forums or books, you'll see endless discussions about carbon to nitrogen ratios. 30 to 1, 25 to 1, sometimes down to decimals. You'll find debates on whether coffee grounds count as green or brown, or how often to turn a pile to get it hot enough. While those details are true in theory, they've scared beginners into thinking composting is harder than it really is. The Amish never stop to calculate ratios. They don't buy plastic tumblers or temperature probes. Their focus is simple: feed the soil with organic matter in a steady, reliable way. The key is using what's on hand, keeping it balanced by common sense, and letting time do the heavy lifting. The Amish method starts with a balance between what they call hot materials, things that rot quickly like manure, fresh grass and kitchen scraps, and cold materials, which are tougher and slower like straw cornstalks and leaves. Instead of chasing exact ratios, they layer them in generous alternating bands. For example, an Amish farmer cleaning out a barn might spread a 6-inch layer of cow manure mixed with bedding straw. On top, he'll fork on a 6-inch layer of cornstalks or shredded hay. Another layer of manure follows, then more stalks, building a stack 3 to 4 feet high. The pile heats naturally because the manure provides nitrogen, while the stalks give it structure and airflow. That balance is built into their daily work routine rather than measured with calculators. One of the most overlooked secrets in Amish composting is pile size. They don't fuss over weekly turning, because the real heat comes from mass. A small heap won't hold warmth, but a pile at least 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and as long as needed, creates its own compost furnace. Once it's that big, the inside begins to steam, breaking down materials even if the pile is never turned. If you walk past an Amish compost pile in winter, you'll often see frost melting off the top while snow sticks to the ground around it. That's the internal heat doing the work. They might fork the pile over once or twice in a year, but never on a schedule. The size alone maintains the process. Another point the Amish know by practice is that compost must be moist. Not soggy, not dry, but like a wrung-out sponge. Rain usually provides enough, but in drier months they may sprinkle water as the pile is built. This is rarely discussed in beginner guides, but it makes or breaks decomposition. Too dry and the pile stalls, too wet and it goes slimy. A backyard gardener can follow the same principle. If you squeeze a handful from your compost and it drips, well, it's too wet. If it falls apart in dust, it's too dry. When it clumps softly and holds together, that's when microbes and fungi really thrive. A defining feature of Amish composting is practicality. They don't chase exotic ingredients. Whatever the farm produces is what goes in. Manure, bedding straw, weeds, food scraps and crop residues are all fair game. That approach ensures composting isn't a chore. It's just part of the natural cycle. For gardeners, the same applies. If your yard produces bags of leaves each fall, those are your cold layers. If you mow grass or have kitchen peelings, those are your hot layers. Don't worry if the pile is mostly one thing during certain seasons. Balance happens over time. The Amish know that as long as organic matter keeps cycling back into the soil, fertility never runs out. To put this into practical numbers without overcomplicating, you can think in terms of buckets or wheelbarrows rather than ratios. 2 wheelbarrows of green waste like grass or manure paired with 1 wheelbarrow of dry leaves or straw will always move decomposition forward. Stack these alternating layers until your pile reaches at least 4 feet high. That's it, no math needed. Over the course of a few months, you'll notice the pile slumps as it shrinks down. You can either add new layers right on top, or if you prefer, just build a fresh pile next to it. By the time that first pile has aged for a season or two, the bottom half will have turned into dark, crumbly compost that's just perfect for the garden. Once the compost has fully broken down into this rich, earthy soil, the Amish spread it straight onto their fields, usually before planting in the spring or after harvest in the fall. Since they don't use any chemical fertilizers, this cycle is, well, really their main source of fertility. For heavy-feeding crops like corn, they'll spread compost thickly, sometimes several tons per acre. For lighter crops like oats or hay, a thinner application is usually enough. On the small scale, a gardener can follow the same logic. A half-inch layer raked over a vegetable bed before planting gives seedlings a nutrient boost. A shovelful in each hole before planting tomatoes or peppers sets them up for a season of strong growth. Adding a bucketful around fruit trees each year mimics the Amish orchard system, where trees get steady, gentle feeding without synthetic inputs. The strength of the Amish compost method isn't in speed, but in reliability. Modern guides often promise compost in 18 days with constant turning, but that's labour-intensive and honestly unrealistic for most people. The Amish are content with compost that takes 6 months to a year because the pile is built big, layered well, and never left dry. This patient approach is why their soils remain fertile after generations of continuous farming. While chemical-dependent fields in other areas degrade, Amish soil grows richer, spongier and more resilient. It's living proof that simple, steady composting outlasts shortcuts. Suppose you mow your lawn and gather 2 bags of clippings, spread them in a 3-foot-wide circle in the corner of your yard. Next, rake a bag of dry leaves on top. Add kitchen scraps from the week as another layer. Keep alternating like this until you reach about 4 feet high. Leave the pile alone, only checking moisture every now and then. By the end of the season, the bottom layers will be transforming into compost. The following spring, dig into the base and you'll find black, crumbly material. Spread it in your beds, then start a new pile nearby. That's the Amish cycle in miniature, simple, sustainable and endlessly repeatable. The Amish method shows that composting doesn't need complexity. Build piles at least 4 feet high. Alternate wet and dry layers. Keep it moist. Use whatever organic matter you have. Let time finish the work. That's all it takes to create compost that feeds soil for years. If you've been overwhelmed by rules and ratios, now you know the shortcut. Copy what farmers without calculators or tumblers have done for centuries. Composting should feel natural, not like a lab experiment. If this guide helps strip away the confusion around composting, share it with another gardener who's been stuck overthinking. And for more down-to-earth soil wisdom like this, subscribe to Backyard Wisdom. Each week, you'll learn timeless methods that make soil building easier, cheaper, and more reliable. Together, we'll bring back the kind of fertility that lasts for generations.